Hi, I'm Richard Stiennon, and I'm talking to Wade Lance, who's Field CTO for Illusive. Welcome, Wade.
Hey, Richard. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
Wade, when I hear Illusive, I think of the deception space. What's a better way to think of what Illusive does?
What a great perspective. Lots of folks do, Richard. That's our background, certainly the deception space. That's where we come from. But really a better way to think of us is more in terms of a post-breach capability, right? What capacity do security teams have to deal with the attacker who has gained a beachhead? Okay, so they've got a spot, now what? This is where Illusive comes in.
Got it. So first of all, tell me more about how you got to be known as a deception vendor, the tools and technology you've developed, and then how you've made this evolution into kind of a post-breach defense.
Yeah, great question. So our founders, Illusive is unique in that our founders are not traditional security people. The people that founded Illusive about 6 years ago now were nation state attackers, people who worked for their government, penetrating the networks of other entities as government employees. And when they left government service, very successful in that space, they really, in forming a cybersecurity company, said, what would we do to stop us and other, say, more sophisticated and capable attackers? What's the gap that most security teams have? And they looked at the space and decided that it's this area of lateral movement, this post-breach. What happens when an attacker establishes a beachhead and their ability to gain access to other systems? And so the first capability in that space where the company really made a name for themselves was as a deception company. And the unique thing there was to really move the deceptive storytelling off of the honeypot and onto the production asset, right? And make the attacker who's established the beachhead confront deception right on patient zero. It really changed the game in cyber deception.
Yeah, that's one layer deeper than most of the traditional honeypots ever took. So how exactly do you do that?
So, the traditional architecture going back, 20 years is very much this, honeypot network-based deceptive entities. And then pretty quickly we realized in the deception space, we needed some way to channel people to honeypots, right? There really wasn't, no attacker really starts off in a deceptive entity. So as a deception community, I've been in the space for over 12 years now with various organizations. As a deceptive effort, we began to deploy breadcrumbs and other objects, historical items, honey tokens and whatnot into the production systems in order to point the attacker towards our honeypots. And I think the folks at Illusive realized very early on that this was a very underutilized and pretty rudimentary capability. So they built this automated infrastructure that does a couple of unique things. The first thing is to examine the production environment, the credential and connection information that it sees, and to do deceptive storytelling based on how this particular host is used. And this really solved a problem for the security team, how to make deception customized and targeted and keep it fresh. And that was really the first problem that Illusive solved, is kind of automating this deceptive storytelling process so that it was an easy system to deploy and manage, but then also effective.
And these breadcrumbs are like credentials that somebody could discover using Mimikatz or something like that.
Well, that's certainly one of the items. Mimikatz and other Windows memory scrapers would pull the credentials out of memory, but there's also the Windows cache. There's applications that store credentials in the browser or other administrative applications, RDP and WinSCP and those kind of applications as well. And then of course, credentialing is only one side of the equation, right? The other side of the equation is connection strings. that browser history and application history, registry histories. And attackers are certainly very, very, very keen on getting privileged credentials, but also the connection strings. Where can I go from this system? Always a key element, for the attackers. And Illusive does a great job in using both of those elements to tell customized stories that are logical and believable. It's super effective, yeah.
Now, didn't you create a tool to do that? Because first you have to scope out what's there to discover where to put your breadcrumbs. Didn't you create a tool that kind of gives you a complete picture of kind of that exposure of credentials throughout your network?
Yeah, and that was really the first conundrum that was solved with a unique architecture. And again, the Illusive people think differently, and it's paid big dividends. And so the traditional model would be to install an agent on the system in order to introspect the host and gather that kind of data. But our founders, with their background, knew that any agent was going to be vulnerable. It could be detected, it could be attacked, it could be used against you. There's all kinds of, not just to mention, the overhead, right? Just IT people don't like yet another agent. And so what they did there was create a solution that leveraged a dissolvable binary. Rather than installing a persistent agent, we run an executable on the endpoints that completely dissolves and goes away at the end of its cycles. This gives us direct endpoint visibility, exactly what credentials and connection information are on the system. Then it gives us the ability to automatically plant deceptive stories that make sense for that system. Then our executable and all of its elements, the process, all go away automatically. It's very fast and very light. And then so we do that on a cadence, slightly more often than once a day is the default.
Can't you use that same tool for, I guess, cleaning up credentials that might be floating around out there and shouldn't be?
Well, that was the thing that happened. I guess about 3 years ago, we saw our customers using our data about what we had seen in the environment, somewhat of in a threat hunting or a research mode, kind of an auditing function to say, Illusive has seen these kinds of credentials and this kind of information. And then they would actually dispatch people after examining the Illusive data, actually go out and clean this information, because very risky to have privileged credentials laying around, or connection strings to sensitive hosts, huge liability. And so about 3 years ago, we developed a project to release a platform we called Attack Surface Manager. And it really takes it to the next level, as you're describing. So when that binary hits the endpoint, not only does it introspect the endpoint and gather information, plant deceptive stories, but it also cleans the host and eliminates privileged credentials and sensitive connection strings and other information that we know attackers leverage. Matter of fact, it's their favorite form of lateral movement, right? Living off the land. And so, yeah, the cleaning capability has been a huge hit. I think we've been in the market with that for over 2.5 years now.
Are you finding customers, are become all in just based on that feature, and then eventually adapt the rest of the breadcrumbs and deception technology?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. We kind of imagined that some less mature security organizations might start with just that attack surface manager as kind of a cyber hygiene capability. Just, everybody should be doing that, right? Everyone should be auditing systems and doing automated cleaning and just simply reducing attackers' opportunities. And I think we felt like when Attack Surface Manager came out that it would be that kind of approach. And what we've actually seen is not that. Is that once you buy into the idea that I would like to defend my network from lateral movement options, you're kind of buying into saying, hey, I need a holistic solution. So if you use Attack Surface Manager to reduce the attack surface and do cleaning, that's great. But if you don't backplant deceptive stories, what's left over for the attacker is still all reusable, right? We can never clean it all. We can never get everything out of there. So I think as people in security teams, they think about MITRE 6 through 9, and they think about maturing their capability and dealing with the lateral threat. In most cases, they see the necessity for not just cleaning and maintaining the environment, but also back planning deceptive stories. It gives them a huge advantage, and in for a penny, in for a pound, I think is part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me a feel for what the customer experience is like, the kind of the before and after, and what they go through while they're deploying.
Yeah. So it's a great process. One of the things that's been interesting is that there's different consumers of the information. So the security team, the SOC team, and the IR people, very, very interested in our alerts when we get detections and leveraging the deception. There's also a forensics capability that's super interesting to them. We can talk about that in a minute. But they're really the consumers of these high fidelity alerts they're different from what the security team already has because they're deterministic as opposed to probabilistic, which is a whole new kind of a thing, super useful. But then the information about attack surface manager and where the organization is at in managing local Windows administrators and browser saved credentials and connection strings to high value assets, that's typically consumed by different teams, right? So for IT organizations, Active Directory and PAM teams and server operations and workstation operations. So it's a fast and efficient process to roll this out, but it engages lots of different teams because it's providing value to different people in the organization. And so people get pretty excited about it when they realize how this automation is going to make their life better. But like other security tools, there's an initial setup process, right? And so it's a little bit of work now and then a lot of value, going forward.
Is it very difficult to install and deploy and get up and running?
So, no. As a matter of fact, it's super easy. We were in an evaluation with a prospective customer, Giant, and they wanted to do some testing on our little endpoint binary that we deploy. So they set up a test environment, and we rolled out a server for them to do a test on, and they pushed the binary out and ran it in this test environment. And they came back and they said, there's no results. Your binary runs so fast and so light. We didn't gather any data. We didn't even see it. So, in fairness, it's a different process, right? Security teams and IT teams don't have a lot of experience with dissolvable binaries sent out on a cadence. Once they experience it and we help them kind of understand the values, they get pretty excited about it because it's, again, super light and fast and efficient. We've rolled this out to organizations with 50,000 systems in a couple of days, and they're up and running and starting to get the value right off. So it's a light lift. It's pretty fast and efficient once people get used to the fact it's a little different.
Are there any good war stories of people who've caught, advanced persistent threat actors in their network as soon as they deploy?
Yeah, absolutely. Lots of actors operating in the environment. Lots of stories about multiple beachheads that are, being detected through this, and we can see coordinated efforts from between these systems. And one of the things I think that was really interesting to us, we really did not expect when we first put the product out, is how effective this would be against insiders. And the reason being that, we think about the insider, they really are an advanced persistent threat, right? They have a beachhead. We gave it to them. As an organization, we hire this employee or vendor or contractor or whatever they be, give them a laptop and hey, they're in. And so Illusive with our deception capability provides this very high fidelity alerting, and it gives the insider an opportunity to take action against something, and now we have a lot of clarity that this person is behaving in a malicious manner, right? Number one, they violated security policy to even get at the data in the first place, right? You shouldn't be running Windows Credential Editor or Mimikatz to do memory scraping and then Kerber roasting, right? That's That's typically a pretty clear sign of malicious use. And so when we see that kind of thing, it's been surprising to us. Actually, from what we hear from customers, just up over 50%, around 50% of our detections turn out to be insiders, someone with legitimate access to a system who's now moving against other hosts. And so it's definitely fun and exciting. The customers enjoy it because it's a lot less work to get at that poison needle in the needle stack, right? Lots of threats out there, lots of things happening, but when you've got someone in the network who is moving against high-value systems, they've got presence, they're past the first round of defenses, it's something that needs to be identified quickly and moved on, and that's been super popular, I think, for people who've rolled it out.
I'm sure. I can't think of a single reason why somebody wouldn't adopt this technology as soon as they're exposed to it. I want to thank you so much, Wade. This has been great.
Thanks, Richard. My pleasure. Take care.